Hey everybody, it's me Peter, and today I wanted to make a video about how to go and find library jobs. Now, if you are a librarian or a library worker, this is probably going to be a part of your life for a while, certainly in the beginning of your career, or perhaps earlier. I know a lot of the folks who are subscribed to this channel, some of you are currently library students, currently library workers, or maybe you just aren't decided that you want to become a librarian, but you've been thinking about it. I figured if I showed you how you can go and find library jobs, this would be a good way for you, first of all, to find a job if you need one, but also if you aren't quite to that point in your career, it should give you some ideas of what folks are looking for when they're hiring for librarians or other library workers. Second of all, it's just a really good thing to have in your pocket. I expect that for many of us, especially in the middle of this pandemic, work precarity is a reality, and so whatever kind of tools we can have in our pockets to help us find employment, find gainful employment, would be useful. And since I am not a knowledge dragon, I do not hoard knowledge, I hope, I figured I would share it with you in the hopes that it helps you get a job and have a little bit easier time in your life. So, there it is. A few things before I get started. The context for the resources that I'm about to show you are that, let's see, how to explain this. I will show some resources that are mostly useful just for North America, so specifically the US and Canada. I don't have any experience looking for library jobs in Mexico, unfortunately. I wish I did. Maybe that will be something that I will do in a future video. But yeah, if you're anywhere else in the world other than those two places and looking for jobs, this might not be super helpful. I know that there are resources out there, I just don't know them well enough to share with you because I don't use them daily. Some other things, besides just being the North American context, I'm going to try and keep it fairly broad. So the resources I am going to show you are useful for if you want to be a public librarian, academic librarian, special librarian, government librarian, mainly because these are all of the employment opportunities that I myself have been looking for. So hopefully they are useful for you. And the last thing is that this is by no means a deep dive into any of these resources, but I will show you the basics, like how to get started with a search and what the results look like. But if you have any questions, of course, let me know in the comments below as I go through, and I will do my best to answer them. I will endeavor to serve your information needs. Okay, that was a very hokey thing. Let's just get into it. Now, for many of you, if you haven't been doing the library job search very often, this might be where you start. Good old Google. And that's fine. You can just start with a simple search for library jobs or LIS jobs and see what comes up. Now, a reminder that when you use Google, usually it will figure out where you are and give you jobs that are relevant to that location. For me, Vancouver, British Columbia, it shows me jobs in Vancouver, British Columbia. But I don't use that super often to find jobs because most of the times when I go to Google and search for jobs, it sends me to general job boards like Indeed or Monster. And while these are useful, they aren't super used. It's kind of like going to Craigslist. Maybe there will be one or two librarian jobs there, but usually libraries don't post their jobs on boards like that because there are a number of resources that already exist that are specifically for library jobs and librarian jobs. Now, the first one we're going to look at is the ALA job list, which you can find at joblist.ala.org. As the name suggests, this is basically a listing of jobs put together by the American Library Association. Since it's by the American Library Association, it is one of the larger places where you can find library jobs, and like almost exclusively library and librarian jobs. There are a few LIS jobs, so information and knowledge organization positions that aren't strictly librarianship at private companies, but those don't come up too often, but sometimes they do. And yeah, that's it. So let's just look at what we've got here. So right here basically is where you do the search, as you would expect. Below the search bar, you will see featured librarian information, science and technology jobs. These featured jobs, I assume, are sponsored. Employers can probably pay a little bit extra money to get their jobs posted here. but just because someone pays for it, it's good for visibility, but it doesn't necessarily tell you anything about the job itself. To get started with a search, you can either put in a keyword if you know exactly what you're looking for, or you can just do search jobs. And if you just click the button without entering anything, it will give you everything. Now, typically, once I get to this screen, what I usually do is I will just right off the bat sort by posted date. So that will show you the jobs that have been posted the most recently. That way I know that I will be looking at jobs, or I have a better likelihood of looking at job postings that are still current. I don't know if the job list lets employers post like a date to stop showing the posting. I assume it does, but why risk it? And typically when I'm going through job postings, I'll only go through the ones that have been up for maybe a couple weeks at most. And that's what you get. It's nothing super earth-shattering aside from this is just library jobs, which is super useful. On the left-hand side, you'll see, of course, there are various filters that you can do. You can filter by organization type or primary job function or job type. These are all very useful. They will help you find what you're looking for if you already know. One thing that is not useful that I found in my experience is this state one. So you can search by state, which will be helpful, but if you're looking specifically for jobs outside of the US, this filter is not particularly useful. So if we do update results, the previous, all of the jobs, there were 160 jobs. And when I filter by just non-US jobs, now there are 3. And looking at these 3, you'll notice that the first one is actually in Phoenix, Arizona. So why that came up, I don't know. The next one is listed as Hong Kong, and this one is listed as United States. Still, it just doesn't specify which state. So it could just be remote, which it says right there. So that's what the search results look like. Now, when you click an entry, it's probably what you will expect. We'll just go back to this one, why not? And see what comes up. Yeah, so you get what you would expect. Over here, you will see the more nitty-gritty details of it. So the official position and title and the posted date, some basic requirements, and salary. Now, let's say that you wanted to apply for this job. You would just click here, apply now, and it takes you to the employer's website or wherever they decide to have you fill out your application packet. One other thing that's worth mentioning, and this is the case for a bunch of the resources I will show you, is there is always the option. So as a librarian, I expect that your life is going to be a lot of applying for jobs, especially in the beginning. I hope this isn't the case for you. I hope that after applying for jobs for a month, you find something that suits you and you apply and you get hired and you live happily ever after. But if that's not the case, there is this little thing right here that says email me jobs like this, and you would plug in your email address, and basically once you do that, every now and then, usually I think every week or so, the Joblist board will send you whatever jobs have been posted related to the search that you just did. And I find that useful so that I don't particularly want to go to ALA jobs list and constantly refresh, although I tend to do that anyways. But yeah, that's a nice way to just see what's out there and not have to worry about checking all by yourself all the time. So yeah, that's ALA Joblist. Again, it's joblist.ala.org. Now, let's go to the next tool. After ALA Joblist, I would say the next useful one for me that I use quite a bit is usajobs.gov. So usajobs.gov is basically a repository of jobs that are open for folks who want to work for the US federal government specifically, not state government, but for all of the agencies. As you can imagine, the federal government is a monster. It is huge, and there are so many agencies. And so if you're looking for a job with the Federal Bureau of Investigations, ATF, Department of Justice, Department of Energy, the Library of Congress, any branch of government, this is where you will find jobs. And it's very useful in that way because having been a former federal employee, the application process for federal jobs is all quite similar. And the nice thing about USA Jobs is it has a resume builder in it, which will guide you through the process of putting together a resume if you haven't already. Won't talk too much more about resumes in this video. Just know that federal resumes are different. If you want to know more, ask me in the comments below and maybe I'll tell you about it. But yeah, so that's what USA Jobs is for, and that's what you will find is jobs for just about any branch of the federal government, any agency or organization. One or a couple of things that you won't find in USA Jobs is posting for certain agencies. So for the intelligence agencies, they don't always post jobs here. Sometimes they do. But for organizations like the National Security Agency or the Central Intelligence Agency, Defense Intelligence Agency, organizations like that, they have their own jobs board and hiring processes that don't usually overlap with this for varying reasons, but sometimes you will see jobs. And you will see jobs more generally for the Department of Defense, being one of the largest employers in the world. There are lots of jobs and they are across the country. So how to get started with USA Jobs, not so different from the job list. Basically, you have the same thing, search bar for keywords and location. But if you don't enter anything and you just click search, it will just show you, well, it won't show you everything, but what it will show you is it will show you these filters. And these filters are basically what you're going to want to use to find the job that you're looking for. Now, federal jobs, they all fall under series. And the series for librarianship is, I think, 1410. So we will just click there. And once you apply a filter, it just automatically updates the search results, which is very useful. I just clicked 1410 for librarian, and now, cool thing, we know that there are 8 active librarian jobs that one can apply for. And we will see them right here. Library. So one of the things about being a repository for federal government jobs is there are not super standardized forms of postings. Every agency has their own way of writing a posting. It's fine. But some places that are a little bit more familiar with using libraries, like the Library of Congress, do have it figured out. And so just scrolling through these results, you can see some of the details that they show. Nice thing about federal jobs is they just put the starting wage right there and what kind of position it is and the location for places where it's just a single location. For places where there are multiple locations, you'll see it says multiple locations, or it'll say something like this, location negotiable after selection. It will also show you postings not just located in the US, but also overseas. Some Department of Defense jobs will be overseas. Some State Department jobs will also be overseas. Oh, I should know this because I used to work for the federal government. Now you know. And then also it will show you the date range of when the job opened and when it closes. And this is very important to pay attention to because once that window closes, it's closed. So let's just take a peek at a random position. Let's say, so we'll just take a quick look at this job posting. You've got the overview, which shows some of the basic details about it. Location, where the vacancy is, or perhaps where the vacancies are, because some job postings in USA Jobs will be available for multiple locations. Duties, what you will be doing, of course. Requirements, so what the experience requirements are, what the educational requirements are, and what your experience and education translates to into the pay scale. So for example, GS9, you can look up a pay table for federal government jobs to see what GS9 equals. Probably around $59,000 or $60,000, how you will be evaluated, background checks and security clearance. So that is something to be aware of, is some federal jobs require having a security clearance. I haven't seen that be the case so much for librarian jobs, but that might be different for positions with intelligence agencies. They'll spell it all out on their website, or if you talk to a recruiter, they can tell you all about that as well. Required documents, of course, benefits, and how to apply, which will show you the contact information of who to talk to when something goes wrong. When you're applying for a job on USA Jobs, just about all of the jobs, with a couple of exceptions, will have you apply through USA Jobs itself. So you'll go into USA Jobs, you'll make an account, you'll fill out all of these different resumes or upload your own resume if you want to, and then USA Jobs, the website, will send that to whatever agency you're applying for at. So for the Library of Congress, for example, they have their own hiring, like HR talent management tool, and it will automatically, like USA Jobs will automatically put your resume there and whatever documents that are required. And then when you get updates about where your application is, like what its status is, you can see the basics on USA Jobs, but sometimes for more detailed updates of if they are reviewing applications or if you've been selected or whatever, you actually have to go to the Library of Congress website itself, which is not so hard. It's all fairly well integrated. Yeah, and that's that's it, I guess, for the USA jobs. There are some other useful filters that you can check out. So let's say that you know you want to make more than a certain amount or less than a certain amount. You can filter by salary. Grades, again, pay grades also relates to how high you can get promoted. If you really want to work for a specific agency, you can filter by that. So since I've already applied by the series of librarian, the 1410, of these are the only agencies that are hiring librarians right now. But that will change. Because that is the case, you can leave those blank. And if you just always want an update of federal librarian jobs, you can click Save this search. Now, when you do that, so first you have to sign in and make an account, but I really like USA Jobs job emails because they will send it whenever there is a new job available that's been listed. They'll only send one email a day, but that email will have anywhere between 1 and 10 postings. That's quite useful because it saves you from having to go here and apply all of the filters again. And again, it shows you jobs for all of the federal agencies, with a few exceptions, which saves you a lot of time. All right, so the next site that we're going to look at, the next resource is called the Partnership Job Board, and this is specifically for jobs in Canada. This one is great because it is almost the same, like it provides jobs for coverage across all of Canada in the same way as ALA Joblist does for the US, and it gets updated just about daily. And just like the other ones, you can register to get emailed updates. One thing that is less nice about Partnerships Job Board compared to the ALA Job List or the USA Jobs one is that it will send you a single email for every new job listing at the end of every day. So some days there are no postings and you get no emails, and some days there are like 5 and you get 5 emails from this, which can be a little obnoxious, but I guess it depends on how you use it. For me, I actually kind of prefer that because I can then star the emails because my life is run by email. And then I can find the specific email with the link to the specific job posting when I want to go find it. But yeah, to find jobs on the partnership job boards, you just click Browse Job Listings, and it automatically arranges them according to when they were posted. And when you see this list, it shows you the location, so city and province, the organization, and the job position. You can do a search for more if you have something that you're looking for specifically. So for example, let's say that you lived in British Columbia, so you only want to see British Columbia jobs. Press Find, and that's all of the ones that are open right now. The nice thing about Partnership Jobs Board is that postings get removed once they hit that closing date. So you never have to worry about finding a posting that is out of date. If you see it, it is available. You should just apply for it as soon as possible. Just keep in mind that you need to apply by that closing date. Another thing about this is that the details are not always super thorough. So as you can see, this job posting is really just a paragraph, which doesn't tell you a ton of information. Whereas something like this job posting is everything. So position title, what kind of position it is, where it is, how much you make, and what you would expect from a job posting. I think that's super useful. But again, not all job postings do that. All right, so if you decide that you want to get email alerts, like I had mentioned earlier, you actually have to register for that. So up here in the right-hand corner, you would click Register and put in your account details and create account. And then they will just start sending you updates, which is useful. Again, when you apply, when you do this, it will send you a single email for every job listing that gets posted, typically at the end of the day. So usually I see them start trickling in at around like 7 or 8 p.m. Pacific time. Now the next resource and this one I actually just found out about, this is another, I guess you could say aggregator. Basically, this is where you can find a bunch of jobs posted across the internet, put into a single place. This is INALJ, or I Need a Library Job. Similar to the ALA job list, it's basically an aggregate of a bunch of different job postings from across the internet. Again, also similar, employers can pay to have their jobs listed, and the jobs that you might want to find are here on the top left corner where it says INALJ jobs. So the way that this website works compared to the job list or the Partnership Jobs Board is a little bit different. So instead of doing like a regular search engine that you would expect, it actually first breaks it down by location. and also shows jobs by year. So we are in 2021, so we would click 2021, and then you will see that there are links for days that have been posted, and well, you'll see when we click it. So when this opens, as you can see, it's a little bit different. It's not that same search engine style. This is literally just a PDF that shows different jobs in different places. As you can see, sponsored job is right here at the top, and then after that it's broken out by location. So for example, right here we see all of the jobs that they have listed for California. You click those and that'll take you to the posting for the job wherever it is. But for jobs not in the US, scroll all the way down to the bottom, you'll see that it doesn't actually have links to them. Rather, it has links to the websites on that previous site that we were looking at. So the INALJ British Columbia website looks like this. I have noticed that for some of these links aren't quite up to date. So it goes, this is basically all volunteer work, so I can't fault them for that. It's just something to keep in mind. So maybe before coming to somewhere like this for non-US jobs, maybe just go back to that partnership job board first. But since I just found out about this and I think it might be a useful resource, have a look. Also, here's some handy keywords for searching, not just on the website. I'm not sure if you can search on the website, but in Google and other job boards. So INALJ, I need a library job, don't we all? All right, so the next resource that we're going to look at is state job boards. Now, state job boards, each state generally tends to have their own. And while some of these jobs you might see in other places, some of them you won't, because it depends on the agency, again, to decide where they want to post those job postings. Most of the time, I've found that usually state governments tend to just stick to their own job boards, probably because it's simpler and cheaper. But we can just go ahead and use the CalCareers website as an example. Since this is not just library jobs, you really want to actually specify what you're looking for. So just plug in the word librarian and press enter, and it will bring you back librarian jobs for the state of California or for California agencies. Looks like right now California is hiring quite a few librarians for prison librarian positions, so that's good to know. When we go to one of these things, the things that you really want to look out for are minimum requirements, position details, and also keep in mind that some states have special requirements. Some states have testing requirements. I know that California has a civil service exam. It has lots of civil service exams, and one of them is for a librarian position, so you have to make sure that you take that. But usually this will give you a little bit of information on how to do that test. So right here, eligibility, exam results, LEAP examinations, and all that jazz. As for actually how to do that exam, you would want to go back to that CalCareers website, and they've got right here an exam assessment search. And again, you just put in librarian and search, and it will show you when they are doing the exams and how to do the exams just by clicking the different exam postings. So there is that. And these are exams for the specific librarian position. So if you were interested in doing that correctional facility one, you would see this. Do view exam posting, and follow the instructions that it says. That's, again, just an example. State boards are one thing. There are, of course, other examples out there. You can look up Oregon's or Washington's or Delaware's or Idaho's, wherever you want. Up to you. So the next example I'm going to give you is for how to find a job with a university. Now, interestingly enough, I find that of all the folks that post jobs on things like ALA Joblist and the Partnership Job site, it's almost exclusively academic and public libraries, so you have pretty good odds of finding a university job on either of those sites if it is up, but not everyone, again, uses those, and for various reasons. So if you're looking for somewhere in a specific location, or there's an institution that you have your heart set on, go to their website, and you will find jobs in one of two places. Usually at the very top, it'll say something like careers, or at the very bottom, again, it'll say careers, maybe under the CSU system or something, usually like under the about section, if there is such a thing. But again, we go back to careers, and we will do staff and faculty. One thing to keep in mind when you're searching for academic librarian jobs is most of them actually qualify not as staff, but as faculty. So they usually come in tenure and non-tenure track. And that is an important thing to keep in mind, and we'll talk about that in just a second. With something like this, we just do keywords, librarian, and search. And here are the current librarian jobs for Cal State University system. As I mentioned, you can see different kinds of appointments, so tenure track, at will or temporary. And if you click one of these, it will show you the posting. Again, what you would expect, the details, description, and where to apply or how to apply. Another example of such a thing is, we'll do the University of British Columbia. So my sweet, sweet alma mater is here, and they actually just recently updated their website. So if I don't do this super smoothly, you'll just have to forgive me. But again, we want to either check the top or check the bottom. Careers, as I said, right here. And we click it. And again, jobs tend to be broken up into either staff positions or faculty, and then also student or temporary. Librarian jobs are almost always faculty positions, so you click faculty. And then here's the postings you get. And if we type librarian, there is currently one librarian job posting that is open. There had been one a few days ago, but it recently closed. So you would click it and see what comes up. Again, the stuff you would expect: qualifications, summary of responsibility, and a little bit about the place that you might be working. So that's how you would find an academic librarian job. So that is that. And then the last website, we're going to wrap this up real quick. There is the SLA website. So SLA is the Special Library Association. Special libraries can be anything that are not what you expect. So they wouldn't be a public library. Sometimes they're, but not always, they are academic libraries. Also federal agencies and companies. Things like law librarians, for example, might fall under the SLA. So to use their board, if that's the kind of job that you're looking for, you can go here to careers.sla.org and do search jobs. And we have the list of jobs that they have right now. Again, it's pretty similar to everything that we've seen before. We would just maybe filter by posted date. One thing that's different is you can see all of the postings here on the side. And then as you click them, the list stays up, but the content section changes. Again, it's more of what you would expect. Those are most of the resources that I have used in my job hunt. Don't have tons of advice, but if you have any questions, by all means, let me know in the comments below. Guess that's it. So if this has been helpful, let me know, like this, subscribe, comment, share, whatever suits you. I guess I should just clarify now, none of this was sponsored. No one paid me to show you these resources. These are just places that I've used in the past to search for jobs, and I wanted to make sure that you knew about them because, again, I want to see you happy and successful. The more folks that we have that are doing well in the career, the better we all are. So that's it. Thank you for watching, and until next time, don't forget to ask questions. Okay,